Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and I recently watched a few YouTube videos, and I've been revisiting old movies, and they've really had me thinking about the future of gaming. And I started to think about one of my favorite fighting games of all time, which is Marvel vs. Capcom 2. But then I also thought about an episode of Black Mirror. Now, for those of you who don't know, Black Mirror is a series that was released on Netflix. And it doesn't necessarily follow one singular story. It's just a compilation of different mini stories that, in my opinion, kind of demonstrate what the future looks like for us as far as technology and as far as how we're going to interact with artificial intelligence and just machines in general. And there's an episode of Black Mirror where you have a guy, Danny, and his friend Carl. And Danny and Carl grew up playing one of their favorite fighting games. Now, in the episode, the game is called Striking Vipers. And it shows them in their younger years, maybe in their early to mid 20s, playing this game one night, late at night. Danny's like, I need to go to work. And Carl's like, you know what, man, let's get another game in. And so they pop in Striking Vipers into what looks like a PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4, and they go at it for a few hours, pretty much until the sun comes up. And then the show cuts to 11 years later, right? And now Danny and Carl, they're in their mid 30s, and it's Danny's birthday, and he hasn't seen Carl probably in a year. And so Carl comes to Danny's birthday party, and he brings him a game for his birthday. Now, mind you, Danny's turning 38, and what Carl brings him is he brings him the most recent version of the same game that they played over a decade ago, right? So he brings him Striking Vipers, 29 or whatever the version is, but it's the most up-to-date version. And the unique thing about this version of Striking Vipers is that it comes with VR capability. So Danny tells Carl, he's like, man, thanks for the game, but it looks like it needs a virtual reality kit, and I don't have that to play it. And so Carl pulls out and he says, well, look into the bag, man. I got you the virtual reality set. And now I would have thought that, the virtual reality set would have come in a large virtual reality box like how we see them now. But the virtual reality set comes in a box that's about the size of the box that you would see for like a watch. And so as the episode goes on, you get to see Danny actually play the Striking Vipers game. And the way the virtual reality set works is it's this little node or dial that's about the size of a dime. And the way it works is that you attach the little node to your temple. And once you attach the node to your temple, you use the remote to start the game. And the little node that sits on your temple basically connects with your brain in some neurological way. And it puts you in the game, at least mentally. So there's this neural connection between you and the game. And whereas, before 11 years ago, he and Carl would have had to use, the remote controls to play the game. Now Danny is fully immersed into the game using this neural link, for lack of better terms. And not only is he able to be in the game and control the game, but he's fully immersed into the game, meaning he can feel what's happening in the game. He can see what's happening in the game. I'm not sure if he was able to smell and taste what was happening in the game, but the game altogether became a lot more sensory for Danny. Now he was fully immersed into the game. He was living out this fighting game. And at first it's fun because it's a whole new experience. Obviously, it was a game that they were already addicted to as kids growing up. They loved playing it. They stayed up all night playing it. But the fact that there was now this neural link to the game made it even that much more immersive and even that much more addictive. And when Danny and Carl would play the game back in the day, Danny would use a female character and Carl would use a male character in the game to fight. And so what they started doing was Carl had the game as well, right? And so Carl would start to text Danny once Danny got off from work and say, hey man, are you up? Do you feel like playing a game? And now they were able to connect not just through neural connections, but there was also a Wi-Fi component that allowed them to play each other over Wi-Fi. Now, this is where it starts to get weird, because in the game, as playing as the male and female character, eventually, and I won't get into the gory details, but eventually they begin to fall for each other in the game. Meaning Danny's female character and Carl's male character begin to engage each other, if you know what I'm saying. And it starts to get very strange because Carl and Danny develop a low-key addiction to this, almost like a shameful addiction to this, which then causes them to want to discover if they have actual feelings for each other in real life. And I remember when I first saw this episode of Black Mirror, which was a few years ago. Maybe I saw it maybe around back 2017, maybe 2018 was when I first saw the episode. I thought, that's pretty strange. But the idea still seemed very far-fetched to me. Like, I don't know how real is this? Well, I recently watched a YouTube video discussing Elon Musk's Neuralink, which is basically a device that can be implanted into your brain, which will allow you to, basically what this device does is it allows the neurons, because whenever you lift your hand or you lift your arm, what that is that's basically a bunch of electrical signals being sent from your brain down your spine to your arm to move your arm up. So in order for you to click on this video, neurons had to be sent from your brain down your spine to your hand for you to click on this video for you to watch it. And what Elon Musk's device allows people to do is it allows people who have the broken link, and by broken link I mean maybe you had spinal damage, maybe you have had damage to your brain, that doesn't allow those signals to be sent from your brain to whatever body part it is that you're trying to engage or move. Elon Musk's Neuralink basically bridges that gap. It allows your brain to send those signals to those parts of your body, allowing those body parts to move, thereby enabling those who couldn't walk before to walk, those who maybe have suffered from paralysis, now you can actually move again, because those signals are now able to be sent from your brain to your body. And that's basically the leading remedy for this new technology that Elon Musk is proposing. But obviously, like any new technology, there are a whole host of other implications that can be applied to the technology. In some studies, it's allowed individuals who have no motor functions, meaning they're fully paralyzed, to type out messages fully using their brain, meaning they can use their mind, their brain, to move a cursor right across a screen and actually type out messages, type out emails. And I'm sure as the technology advances, you'll be able to use your brain to do a whole host of other things, to perform a whole host of other actions that you would otherwise have done digitally using a keyboard, a mouse, a controller, things of that nature. Y2K Collector, where are you going with this? Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a game that came out when I was a kid back in the 90s. I think this came out either in the 90s or 2000. Let's see. When did this come out? This came out in 2000, right? Which to me was a true turn, not the turn of the century, but it was definitely when we started to see the digital era ramp up to a whole new degree. But I'm not going to digress. Now, it's definitely feasible for me to see a day where there is a Marvel vs. Capcom game or a King of Fighters game or a Street Fighter game where you are able to fully immerse yourself into the game, and you won't need a controller, you won't need a mouse, you won't need a keyboard. because you'll be able to control your character fully from your brain. Now, does this mean that we're going to get implants to be able to play video games? No. But we know that technology is advancing at an exponential rate, and I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe that within maybe 10 to 15 years, there could be a device that's non-invasive that perhaps you can attach to your temple that allows you to fully immerse yourself into whatever game it is that you're playing. And the other day, I put out a video talking about AI, OpenAI, Sora, and all the implications of Sora with its ability to create video out of thin air, to create photos out of thin air, and what this would mean when it comes to video games and the endless possibilities of artificial intelligence when it comes to creating digital worlds. Now, I've played not a lot, but I've played a good amount of games on the PlayStation 4. I don't have a PlayStation 5 yet. But when you think about visual aesthetics of video games right now, I don't think that there has been much visual advancements in video games since, say, the PlayStation 3, right? If you look at a PlayStation 5 game versus a PlayStation 3 game, yeah, you might see better textures. Yeah, you might see a little bit more clarity. Yeah, you might see, you might be able to say, wow, I can see the bead of sweat rolling down, the character's face. But there really hasn't been much advancement when it comes to 3D graphics, because at the end of the day, when you put in a game, no matter how good the visuals are on the game, it's still clear that you're playing a video game. It's still clear that you're watching a 3D representation of a human, whether it be a recreation of an NBA player in NBA 2K, 25 or 24, whether it be a recreation of your favorite NFL player. Pat Mahomes is gonna look like a 3D version of Pat Mahomes. We haven't gotten to a place yet in video games where when you play Madden, it looks like you're actually playing with human figures. It still has a 3D effect, and I don't think we've seen much technological advancements in video games visually since the PlayStation 3. And if you feel different, let me know down in the comments if you think that there's been this huge upgrade in visual fidelity from the PlayStation 3 up until now. And so my mind says, well, what's the next step? What's the next step in graphics, right? We were amazed when we went from the NES to the Super Nintendo and we got 16-bit. When we went from 8-bit to 16-bit, it was amazing. And then when we went from 16-bit to 32 bits to 64 bits, it was amazing. And then we went to the polygons with the PlayStation era. And now we're in this 4K era. But I asked myself, 5 to 10 years from now, when companies are releasing systems, are we still going to be using these 3D rendered models? And I would like to say no. I would like to say no, because think about it. If Sora can recreate humanistic, humanoid visuals out of thin air, why wouldn't a video game company apply that to their games so that when you're playing, let's say, a horror game, or when you're playing a suspense game, or when you're playing a game like Metal Gear Solid, you actually look like you're playing as a human being and you're controlling a human being throughout the game. That literally would have to be the next step, because you're not going to go backwards. I think 2D graphics and games that have 2D graphics will always have their place in video games. You're never going to not see a Mario game. But I think that the next step, obviously, when it comes to graphics in video games, is to recreate actual lifelike human representations that you can control and use to act out or play out whatever it is, whatever game you're playing. Now, when you combine that next step in visual graphics and in visual fidelity, and you combine that with OpenAI and Sora, and then you layer on top of that the implications of something like a Neuralink, it tells me that we're not that far off from what we saw in that episode of Black Mirror. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on Netflix. It's Black Mirror. I think it's season 5, and I think the episode is titled Striking Vipers or something like that, because that's the name of the game that they played. But if you watch that episode, you're going to see, like, okay, how far, and ask yourself, how far away are we from this? It's actually kind of shocking. And if I had to guess, I would say that we're probably 10 to 15 years away from that. Because when I look at the PlayStation 5, the only thing that we're getting with these newer consoles is better processing. Really, it's better processing. Maybe it's better hertz. Maybe it's less slowdown. But are people going to really be impressed by more gigahertz in 5 to 10 years? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't think, like, if all the PlayStation 8 or the PlayStation 9 has to offer is more space, more memory, a cooler design, and I don't know, more gigahertz or whatever and I'm not a technical guy, right? I'm just using my eyes and my ears, and I'm watching what's going on in the world, and I'm just asking myself a lot of questions. That's all. I've just been asking myself a lot of questions. You got to say, what's the next step? And I think the next step, from what I'm seeing, is it has to be to get to that level of striking vipers. I'm really interested to know what you all think. What do you think about Neuralink? What do you think about the next generations of video games 5 to 10 years from now? What do you think about an immersive experience when it comes to gaming? Will I be able to actually play as a Mingo? Will I actually able to be a cactus and fight as a Mingo 10 years from now if they decide to make Marvel vs. Capcom 29? It's an interesting thought. It's a provocative thought. And this is where my mind has been. I've had some time off these past couple days, and I've just been watching a lot of old movies and catching up on YouTube and technology. And I'm really interested to know what y'all think. I'm the Y2K Collector with another just thought-provoking video. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Take it easy.